Hundreds of gay men are dying from a drug that no one is talking about. It's called G, and its use is widespread among some gay people. It's cheap, easy to overdose on, and easy to obtain. You can even buy it on Facebook. Every day people are accidentally overdosing, but after a death, the authorities often don't test for it, so no one knows exactly how many people G is killing. I nearly lost 2 of my ex-boyfriends who ended up in comas because of this drug. I'm the LGBT editor of BuzzFeed News, and I've been investigating G for several years. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Dispatches has conducted the largest ever survey into G use to uncover the scale of the problem. It reveals that G is regularly being used to assault gay men. It's used to organised criminals are live streaming on the dark web. Victims rarely come forward. In this film, we'll reveal how murderers and serial killers are also weaponising it. The Metropolitan Police are having to reopen the files on 58 deaths from G to see if foul play was involved. Things are supposed to be better now for gay people. So why is this happening? And why is it being ignored? GHB and GBL trigger euphoria, enhanced sex drive, and low inhibitions. Usually just called G, they're often added to drinks at so-called chemsex parties. The problem is the difference between a dose that gets you high and a dose that kills you can be tiny. Just half a mil too much can lead to unconsciousness, coma, and death. People don't like talking openly about G because it's associated with sex. So the mounting death toll of gay men is cloaked in silence. We've seen this before, in the 1980s when few wanted to talk about AIDS.
Welcome aboard the Southern Service to Eastbourne. The next station.
I've approached many bereaved loved ones, but only one brave family feels able to talk publicly about what happened to their son, one of triplets.
Right.
So this is where Paddy grew up?
This is, yeah, well, they were all in here to start with, the 3 of them. And then Thomas Nolan moved out and Paddy stayed here. That's him. He was a little boy.
Oh. What was he like at that age? What was he?
Oh, he was such a sweetheart. He just won he had this amazing smile, you know, and he just won the hearts of everybody, really, in fairness to him.
Wave.
Oh, sorry, bye.
Paddy was great fun. He was always the kind of troublemaker, but in a really fun way. He was the oldest by 2 minutes. We were so close, and it was a trio. We were so close together, causing trouble. We were cheeky monkeys, in a sense. It was great.
After Paddy came out, he started exploring drugs like G. At 21, in March last year, Paddy took G with a guy he met on the dating app, Grindr.
It was 5:15. Got a phone call from A&E. One of the medics there said, your son's in hospital and he's in a bad way. So I said, look, I wasn't an anaesthetist. Tell me what's happened.
Dad's a retired consultant anaesthetist, so he knows the system. He basically came into my room and woke me up and sat on my bed, just as we are now, and just said, give me a hug. And he made me, and I just thought, this is a bit odd. Gave him a hug. And then he said, Paddy was in intensive care. So I took photos on the day that he was admitted. The whole idea for the photo was I could just hear him saying, oh, it wasn't that bad. I said, well, if it wasn't that bad, Paddy, have a look.
In case he woke up?
In case he woke up.
To show him?
Yeah, to show him.
To shock him?
Yeah, to shock. But also, it was a memory for me.
And you were sat with him in the hospital for a while. What was going through your mind?
I was very angry with him, but at the same time, you know, beside myself.
I think Mum was just so scared, so worried, they're just in shock. I think a mother losing a son, a father losing a son is I'm not sure much will... It's completely wrong in terms of how life should be. It should be the other way around.
You feel for people who are injured, hurt, but this is an order of magnitude greater.
It was your son. How much did the hospital know? Did they know what he'd taken?
Oh God, no, they had no idea that G was involved.
How did they come to test Paddy for G?
I asked them.
You had to specifically request
Yes.
a
Yeah.
G test
Yes.
on your son's body
Yeah, and I offered to pay for it. They knew I was pushing for it.
because you wanted to know the truth.
The truth, yeah.
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 How can you tell how common it is if you don't test for it? So I've got deep concerns about the prevalence of G use, and the official data says it's not a problem. Well, it won't be if you don't test for it.
Despite there being far fewer users of G than of other drugs, the percentage who end up in hospital or die is disproportionately high, though the total numbers are unknown. 2 hospitals in London monitor illegal drug use as part of an EU drug report. In the most recent published figures, G was responsible for more admissions than cocaine, heroin, cannabis or MCAT. Yet G use is still not officially monitored by the major UK drug surveys. Dr. Sarah Finlay is a consultant at St Mary's A&E in London. The hospital sees G overdose victims every week.
What does GHB do to the system, to the body?
Right, so GHB is a neuromodulator, so it works on your brain and the chemistry within your brain, and it increases endogenous dopamine and opioids. So dopamine makes you feel relaxed and a little bit euphoric, and opioids make you feel also a bit drowsy, but also quite good. The main problem with it is that this drowsiness can become so strong that it can send you off to sleep and make you unable to control your own airway. You can die in that state without anyone necessarily around you realising how dangerous that's been for you.
What sort of numbers does St Mary's Hospital see of people come in admitted with GHB overdose?
I'd say that every week we see 2 or 3. It's pretty regular.
How do you identify which drugs are responsible for their coma state?
There isn't really a diagnostic test. It's really just looking at the person, finding out the history, and it's taking the whole picture together to think, OK, this is probably GHB.
But what you're saying is there isn't a test available that's done in hospitals when someone comes in unconscious from GHB to ascertain whether it's GHB that's caused that.
That's correct, yeah.
Some hospitals, where there are suspicions that someone has overdosed on GHB, will record that as a GHB overdose. Others, like this hospital, just record all overdoses overall. Therefore, what we're left with is gaps. Gaps in the data. So politicians and policymakers will not have the full picture in front of them. They won't have all the data. They do not know how many people nationwide are overdosing on GHB. To try to find out, Dispatches with BuzzFeed News and the Terence Higgins Trust conducted the largest ever survey of gay men who use G. 2/3 of the 2,700 who responded told us they'd had serious problems with the drug, like addiction, overdosing, or assault. Despite this, the lack of public health campaigns around this drug and the fact that it's so cheap, a single dose can be as little as 50 pence, means G is becoming more and more popular, especially among young gay men like Paddy Blore. Daniel is 29 and has lost 4 friends to G overdoses. He was given G for the first time when he was just 16, though he had no idea he was being drugged. Over the next decade, he became a regular G user at chemsex parties.
I went to a friend's house and just ended up giving a shot of something, which I thought was alcohol. Took that within a couple of minutes, just my whole world was spinning. I didn't know what was going on, but in a weird way, decided that, oh, that was quite fun actually.
What were you like at that age?
Crazy, vulnerable, lively, energetic. Just wanted to go out and meet new people, get high after I got that experience, have loads of sex. I didn't really think about what dangers could lie ahead.
How frequently would you see guys at parties G'ing out, going unconscious?
It is quite a regular thing. It's seemed as a norm now, I think. It's just, oh look, they've took a bit too much. But it's your body slowly shutting down because it can't handle the amount that's in there.
Half of the G users in our survey reported that they had passed out, and of those, 93% said they knew other people who had done so as well. The problem is that when people lose consciousness on G, they can then stop breathing.
How did people around them tend to respond?
Some of them would be like, F this, I can't be dealing with this. This is not my problem.
More often than not, they wouldn't phone an ambulance?
Yeah, a lot of the time, no. Because they just don't. If you're at a drug-fueled party, last thing you want is an ambulance turning up and then the ambulance seeing drug paraphernalia, calling it into the police, and then obviously they've got a big problem at their house.
More than 1 in 4 of the G users we surveyed said they knew of someone who had died as a result of using this drug. G kills by depressing respiration while the user is in a coma. As the airways collapse, victims often start snoring. Lord Brian Paddock used to be the highest-ranking out-gay police officer in the Met. He lost his former partner to a G overdose.
He was a loving, caring individual. We started dating each other, going out for meals, going out for drinks and so forth. And then I said, well, you come and stay with me temporarily. And I think it was about 5 years later he left. At the inquest, when the person who was at the venue said that they heard him snoring, so they let him sleep on the sofa, the coroner interrupted and said, if somebody's taken G and they start snoring, that's a sign that their respiratory system is shutting down. That is the time to call the ambulance.
In our survey, most respondents were unaware snoring could be a critical warning sign, with only 1 in 5 saying they'd intervene if someone was snoring heavily.
How normalised do you think GHB use is among gay men?
From talking to people, it's extremely widespread. The whole problem is a reluctance, even amongst the families of those who've died from an overdose of G, not wanting to talk about it, but bearing in mind the number of deaths that we do know about and how common taking G is, then I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
What you allude to is a silence.
The gay community is fighting all the time in terms of rights. When I was born, it was illegal to be gay. I was bullied at school because people basically knew that I was gay. And so there is a reluctance for the gay community to admit that they have perhaps more of a drug problem than the heterosexual community. But just coping with the fact that you are gay may tend to lead to people wanting to escape that reality by taking drugs in order to overcome those issues.
Coming up, we reveal how G is being used in assaults and look at the scale of deaths to this drug.
It's a dangerous drug, it's a deadly drug, and it kills people more than it's ever reported and that we know.
G has claimed the lives of hundreds of gay men. Frontline professionals say G use is a public health emergency, with daily overdose admissions across the country. But even when people understand the dangers, some keep taking the drug. Barrister Henry Hendren used to host chemsex parties known as chill-outs in his flat in central London.
I was working a lot of hours at the top of my game, and for relief from what was a 24-hour, 24/7 job, I found G when I was at a sauna, and I didn't know what it was when I was given it, but wow, it suddenly changed how my weekends were spent. I could spend the week Monday to Friday flat out, and then at that weekend have some G and forget about the various cases that I had, and it was a real relief for me, and that's what G provided. It was that escape, which I wasn't able to do up until that point, until I had found that drug.
And so you started hosting your own chemsex party?
Yes, yeah. Lots of people. What
sort of numbers?
Throughout a weekend, maybe 30, 40. One weekend we had 50, just over, through the door.
Is it a full age range of people?
Absolutely. From all sorts of walks of life. I had 2 primary school teachers there. I had a journalist from the Daily Mail.
Which journalist from the Daily Mail?
And I just thought, wow.
Tell me later.
Hence why I thought, is everyone doing this? And not me. I would just put a lot of drugs on the table, and people would help themselves. But house rules, I guess, would apply, and that's partly why I have a conviction for possession with intent to supply.
In 2016, Henry woke up to find his partner dead in bed next to him. He had died from a G overdose. Henry Hendren was convicted of possession with intent to supply. He was sentenced to 140 hours of unpaid work and barred from practicing as a barrister for 3 years.
Do you feel responsible for your partner's death?
I've never denied responsibility for being the person that had the means to buy the drugs and bought the drugs, and had the wherewithal to say no, and didn't say no. And for that, I'm responsible.
When someone dies of G,
Yep.
do you think that we discuss that enough?
We didn't discuss it at all. It's a dangerous drug, it's a deadly drug, and it's a drug that I have myself been in hospital several times. I think about 7 times.
7 times?
7 times, resuscitated twice. The current categorisation does not reflect the fact that it kills, and it kills people more than it's ever reported and that we know. It should be categorised at the same level as heroin.
But it isn't. Category A drugs like heroin and crack cocaine carry a 7-year maximum sentence for possession. Category B drugs like cannabis and codeine carry a 5-year maximum. G is in the lowest category, Category C, along with steroids and tranquilizers. The maximum sentence is just 2 years for possession.
It's deemed by the Home Office to be not that serious, as something that gets you a little bit high and merry, as cannabis. It's just crazy.
But its consequences are far more deadly than cannabis. To estimate how many people are overdosing on G, we submitted Freedom of Information requests to 133 NHS trusts across England and Wales. 97 were unable to give us any figures on GHB, and only 4 seem to be actively looking out for this drug: Portsmouth, Blackpool, Guy's St Thomas's and King's in London. These 4 hospitals saw almost 700 cases involving G in the year to November 2018.
Because hardly any trusts can tell us how many G admissions they've had, we can't be sure of the numbers nationally. If there were no other G cases in the country, it's possible the total could be as low as 700 a year. But if the figures from these 4 hospital trusts are representative of G use elsewhere, that could mean that as many as 17,000 people a year are going to hospital after taking G.
The lack of clear data on G means many hospitals remain unaware of the scale of the problem. This is exactly what Dr. Owen Bowden-Jones found when he set up the Club Drug Clinic in London. His NHS clinic was the first in the country to develop a way of treating G addiction.
We were getting calls from all around the country with people saying, well, listen, we've got this patient. They say they're taking this drug G. We've never heard about it. Can you give us some advice? And quite often those calls would come from intensive care. The one thing that's really distinct, though, about GHB is the small difference between the amount a user takes to get the desired effect and the amount that causes an overdose.
If you don't use the protocol that you've developed to assist someone withdrawing from G, what can happen?
Unlike drugs such as heroin, which cause a very unpleasant withdrawal set of symptoms, they don't tend to be life-threatening. Withdrawal, if someone's heavily dependent on GHB, can be. And the reason that those drugs are so dangerous is that when people are withdrawing from them, they can get a withdrawal seizure. And that seizure, if it's not properly managed, can be uncontrollable and can lead to death.
What would be your educated guess as to the proportion of overdoses that lead to death?
There are some national statistics, and those national statistics show that over the last decade, the number of people who die with GHB detected in their system is around 20 per year. Now, that is probably a very large underestimate. And the reason for that is when there's a death, there's not always the toxicology done to detect to see if GHB is there, because it's not such a common drug as something, for example, like heroin.
What do you notice is common about the backgrounds of gay men who end up in GHB addiction?
One of the features that we've noticed that is very common in people coming to this clinic is experiences of trauma. It can be physical trauma, but the important thing is that people are left with feelings that they just can't cope with. The model that we use in the clinic is one of internalized homophobia, that people who have grown up in a culture where there is either explicit or hidden homophobia internalize that as they're growing up. I want to be very clear about this. This is not for all gay men. This is for gay men who present to this clinic who are using drugs in a harmful way. But for that group that we see here, it does seem as if their drug use is a way to cope with some of the complex feelings they have around their own identity. And GHB is a very effective way of taking away feelings.
It would be so easy for people to dismiss gay men who take GHB or go to chemsex parties and say, well, they could just not take this drug. But what Dr. Bowden-Jones has just told us is, what's really happening here is that people are self-medicating. They're trying to ease the pain of their past.
When someone dies from G, their families are often left with no idea of the true cause of their death, in part because it's rarely looked for.
Generally, when there isn't a cause of death found at the autopsy or there's a specific need to investigate toxicology deaths, our toxicology provider, they provide a screen. So they test for a number of commonly found drugs to identify.
Is G part of that standard screening?
And G's not part of that.
G's not?
G's not part of that screen.
Why is it not?
You'd have to ask the laboratory themselves. They look at, I think, what are the most frequent causes and would expect anything that's less common to be asked for specifically. I'm in the hands of experts. You know, I'm not the expert on G. If the death report has gone to the pathologist, it does, and say it's a leisure centre in which we know there is a gay community and gay usage, the pathologists are well acquainted with this and would probably ask for GHB. And if it came to my notice, I'd probably ask for it.
Probably?
Well, I say probably because I'm pretty reliant on my pathologists.
The picture nationally is quite confusing. Some of the data is contradictory and some of it is patchy. Here you say that you've had 10 GHB deaths in the last 3 years. So say out of that 10, 3 per year here, you're one of roughly 100 co-annual jurisdictions. So as an average estimate would be 300 deaths from GHB per year.
Yes.
That's quite a lot. It's also a similar level to deaths by knife crime.
Yes. I think this is a wider matter for government, for the public. This needs looking at. And certainly I wasn't aware how big an issue or what the underreporting or Later on reporting was a big issue before you approached me. I'd have known. And I'm grateful for that.
The truth is, it's rarely tested for at the moment, so we can't know the real number of deaths caused by the drug. Why is no one doing anything about this? This is so frustrating. In order for GHB testing to become routine, we would need evidence of it being a big enough problem. Well, we're never going to get that unless we have routine testing. It's a classic catch-22 situation. But overdoses are not always accidental. G was first used as a so-called date rape drug in the mid-90s. Today, almost half the G users who responded to our survey said they knew or suspected they'd been given G without their consent. Adrian advises the police on LGBT issues and is an occasional G user.
There have been times where the person you're with deliberately gave you too much. What did they want from that? Why did they deliberately overdose you?
I think it's a combination of reasons. I think it's a power attraction to it because they've got control over you.
Have you ever thought, I should go to the police?
Yes, but I never have.
Why?
Partly because I've always felt it's been my own fault. I've put myself into that situation. Do I want to go through a whole series of trying to explain to our police around this issue when I know, as someone who sits on a Metropolitan Police advisory group around chemsex and drugs, I don't think they understand how to manage and how to ask the right questions when it comes to this issue.
The police say they will always prioritise investigating sexual violence over any drugs offences when someone reports rape. But the fear of being criminalised can prevent those who've suffered an assault from coming forward.
I know that they don't seem to have the community's confidence to investigate and be correct when they look at issues around chemsex.
Do you know whether anyone has ever had sex with you while you were unconscious?
I am not sure. I think I probably have. One particular individual who I remember. But once you've woken up from that experience, you can never be certain.
Right. But you've had suspicions?
But I've had suspicions, yes.
What you described there is being taken advantage of and not being able to stop it. I mean, there's a word for that, isn't there?
Yes, that's right.
Dispatches is investigating the dangers of the drug G. In our survey, almost half of G users believe they've been given it without their consent. In Manchester, Patrick was after being intentionally overdosed.
I was assaulted once. He said, oh, do you all want some G? And there was two other guys, and I went, well, yeah, okay. And I took just swigged it, and I went, oh my God. And I could feel it going down to my throat, and I went, that was not one measure. My whole body started shutting down. My breathing went ridiculous. I started sweating, and it wasn't fun. It was quite violent. I was thrashing around a bit. I was really trying to control myself.
So what did he do?
Oh, he assaulted me. He waited until I was just literally almost passed out to continue, but I was still awake when he started, so I thought I can either scream or just let him get on with it and just like relax and pass out now.
Are you able to piece together overall what effect the had on you?
It's set to stone that not to trust people, and that the gay scene was no longer as bubbly and friendly as it used to be, and that there are not some nice people in this world. I went to these guys' places and they drugged me and they raped me. I don't know how many of them.
You don't know how many people you?
No. Because I was closed more or less when I was there. And then when I passed out, I know that he got on top of me because he started pulling me past out. And then when I woke up, I was completely naked, so.
So you don't know if it was one person or two people or three people?
No, I don't.
Our survey of gay men suggests Patrick's experience is far from isolated. In one of the most chilling statistics, more than 1 in 4 users said they'd been assaulted while on G. And among those men, 4 out of 5 said they knew someone else who'd also been assaulted on G. Stephen Morris in the probation service works with an increasing number of offenders who've committed crimes linked to chemsex.
You have a group of men that are seeking out the context of a chemsex situation in order to commission a serious offence, and they will take time in planning and grooming and commissioning their offence, often involving the dark web or the internet. Once you're in a location, then if people wanted to share images or to actually stream live abuse, then that could well happen in a chemsex context. And we do have offences where that has occurred.
So some people are put unconscious and...
Yes, yeah. There would be crimes of rape committed using that as a method.
And that's being filmed and streamed live on the dark web?
Filmed, shared and viewed live. I mean, that is a feature of the dark web.
Typically, people will put GHB in someone's drink.
Yes.
How else is GHB being administered?
One of the most recent developments is that GHB can be administered within lubricant.
From our research involving thousands of gay men, we found at least 29 who believe they've been given G in lubricant without their consent. But G is not just being used to facilitate sexual violence.
How lethal a weapon is GHB for people who want to commit crimes?
GHB is perhaps the most lethal drug available because a small amount over and above a certain mark and a very small amount can have instant lethal impact. It will kill you.
If GHB is being used as a weapon to overdose and in some cases kill, how do we prove who did it or what the intention was if the drug isn't tested for, if there's no way of knowing what their actual intention was, and if there were several people there, how do you prove who actually gave them the drug? It's a perfect crime and an invisible weapon.
A man has been found guilty at the Old Bailey of drugging and murdering 4 young gay men at his flat in East London, then dumping their bodies nearby. Stephen Port was also convicted of 4 rapes and 10 counts of drugging victims. 17 Metropolitan Police officers are now under investigation by the Independent Police Complaints Commission over their failures to make connections between the killings.
In 2016, Stephen Port was convicted of using G to drug and kill 4 young gay men he met on Grindr. 3 of them were found in a graveyard near his home, 1 with a fake suicide note. Police initially dismissed concerns raised by relatives of the victims. The families are suing Scotland Yard, claiming their loved ones were discriminated against because they were gay. The Independent Office of Police Conduct has identified systemic failings within the Met Police and has made a number of recommendations, but no officers are to be disciplined. The Metropolitan Police declined to be interviewed for this film. I'm back to see Daniel. He used to buy G from Stephen Port after meeting him on Grindr.
You'd met Port at what point in his crimes?
He'd already killed, I think, 2 people.
So he was in the midst of his killings when you were meeting him?
He said in his police interview, he mentions my name.
Daniel, organised him.
Daniel.
I've spoken to him a couple of times at the party.
I got a call from a homicide and serious crimes division.
From the police?
Yeah, but when I say a call, I mean like they visited my home. And I was like, right, okay, what's happened? And then he explained to me he had been arrested on suspicion of murder for 4 young gay men.
What else did the police tell you about Port?
Oh, God, so the last thing that they said at the end of the statement, just before he was leaving, and he said, look, I don't mean to scare you, and this is off the record sort of thing, but just to let you know that everyone Stephen had blocked, he had killed. But you were blocked, but obviously you're here, and that's when my heart sunk. Yeah.
He was telling you that
you could have been the next victim?
That's the kind of gist he was angling it at. It was part of me, it was like, well, why did you just tell me that? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have not known.
GHB isn't just the perfect weapon, it's the perfect weapon in a perfect storm. Young guys, really vulnerable because of what this drug does to you, often in sexual situations, usually with people they don't know. They have no idea what the intentions are of the people that they're with. They have no idea sometimes how much they're taking, or even the fact that they're taking it. And what's particularly horrifying is how close Daniel came to being the next victim of a serial killer.
Hi everyone, this is Jerry. I'm Jerry anyways. Just to get you started on my TV program, what's new and what's glam.
This rambling post on YouTube shows Stephen Port's dealer, Gerald Matovu. In July this year, he was convicted of murdering Eric Michaels using G after they met on Grindr. Matovu was also convicted of other offences, including administering a noxious substance, assault by penetration, and theft, against a further 11 gay men he also met on the dating app. 5 of Matovu's victims reported their crimes to police, but none were investigated thoroughly. One victim's bank card was even used to book a taxi for Matovu's street. Eric Michaels' sons are now pushing for all GHB crimes to be investigated fully so this doesn't happen again. And it's emerged there could be further serial killers using this drug as a weapon of choice. After the failings of the Port investigations were revealed, the Metropolitan Police reopened investigations into a further 58 suspicious deaths involving G. But despite clear evidence that G is being used as a murder weapon, we found that it can be ordered online, easily and anonymously. GHB and its precursor GBL, which turns into GHB in the body, are Class C drugs. It's illegal to sell either for human consumption. GBL can be sold as an industrial cleaner, but if anyone sells or supplies it knowing or believing that it may be ingested, they're breaking the law in the UK. But companies are expected to self-regulate. I want to know how easy it is to get hold of without anyone checking. And within seconds online, I've come up with dozens of ads. So I found this website, and at the top of the page it says, buy GBL online, fast and anonymous purchase and delivery. And if you go into the About Us section, it says, we respect the anonymity of our customers. That's why we're the first and only partner where you can pay anonymous with Bitcoin, that's a cryptocurrency, for your order. There's also no login, no signing forms, and all shipping details will be destroyed after successful shipping. If this was a legitimate company selling cleaning products to cleaning companies, why on earth would you need all your shipping details to be destroyed after making an order? So there's another company, they also advertise on Facebook. So I've just said, for the UK, do I need any documents to buy GBL? He said no. I say, so I don't need to prove I'm a cleaning company. We still do not ask this. It's just outrageous. It's a disgrace. Can I order now without needing proof that I'm a cleaning company? If he's not rumbled by this, Martin is typing, yes, you can order. F***ing hell. So there's a UK mobile number on here, so I am just going to phone him.
Hello.
Oh, hi there. I've just been talking to someone called Martin on the website. I just wanted to check if I can order some GBL without any documents and without any proof that I'm a cleaning company.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So I can order the GBL without any...
It is okay, it's okay.
Do you check customers to make sure they're a cleaning company?
Don't need it. because we are not based in UK.
Okay. Do you have a lot of orders from the UK?
Yeah, we have. The main buyers are from UK.
So I can just place my order and you won't check that I'm a cleaning company?
Yeah.
Okay. Cheers, thank you. Bye. Bye. It's just insane. The terms and conditions of this website say that you must use the GBL exclusively for cleaning and dissolving and will not resell it. But it's pretty clear to me that self-regulation isn't working. That, coupled with the ease of availability, you can buy it through dating apps as well, means G remains incredibly cheap. So while often used by gay men, it's increasingly popular among straight people too. 23-year-old Sophie is a regular G user. She has asked us to conceal her identity.
GHB, I didn't really hear about it until I was maybe about 19, 20. And I came across it in London with a friend.
People do associate it a lot with the gay community and with chemsex. Among straight people, is G used in sexual situations?
No, it is. It's used for exactly the same reason that gay people use it. And I don't know why people think that why we'd have so many different reasons of using it, because we're all people and we all have pretty much the same desires.
So you've seen it used within sexual settings among straight
I've seen it in a multitude of settings, people in a multitude of careers. It's a social problem. It's the same as every other drug, it's just only coming out now because it is something that you can hide.
And it's cheap.
And it is cheap. I used to get it for 50 pence a mil, sometimes cheaper. So that was, you know, your night out for £2.50 or something. It was crazy.
Did you know that it can kill people?
Yes.
And you took it because?
I was very depressed.
And it helped?
Mm.
Have you ever been hospitalised?
Yes.
What happened?
Once I mixed it with ketamine, and the other time was from withdrawal. It was pretty scary. I'm lucky that I have very good friends around me because I didn't really know what to do about it. It's more like about educating people, like what the signs are of you know, taking too much, the difference between having a good time and, you know, being on the edge.
We repeatedly asked to speak to a minister about these issues, but neither the Home Office, the Department of Health, nor the Ministry of Justice has been willing to talk on camera. Hundreds of gay men are dying, maybe more. We just don't know. The authorities aren't looking, aren't tracking what's happening, the law isn't working, the supply isn't being regulated, and the government won't even talk to us. The police have gone to ground too. The worst of it is that it's the perfect weapon. It disappears without trace, so the most serious crimes can vanish. And because it's often used with sex, everything is surrounded in shame and stigma. It's a nightmare scenario. But more telling is what all of this reveals about what it's like to be gay in Britain today. Why so many people are prepared to dice with death to have fun or have sex or to escape their reality. All the advances in gay rights haven't changed the millions of day-to-day hostilities that mean gay people still suffer and still don't value their own lives enough. Until that changes, and until every agency involved wakes up, more and more young gay men are going to slip into comas and die.
Wave.
Oh, sorry. Bye.
It's now a year since Paddy Blore died from a G overdose.
It's just the reality of it all, really. And it's so difficult to sort of take on board.
Those photographs were taken on their 16th birthday. Like herding cats, trying to get them done. We had them done professionally. Oh my God, thank God we did. Because it's a really lovely one of Paddy. since the anniversary of a year, I'm really, really understanding he's not coming back. He's never going to get old. He's never going to come in and say, hi, Mom. Such a waste.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's sort of saying, you were saying, take down the cards, and he's, but I can't. I can't take down the cards. If you put them in a box, you feel as if you're just putting him in a box, and that's him gone. I can't do that. Not yet.
Paddy's buried in Clayton Wood. It's a nice meadow, natural burial site. You see it for what it is, and you know he's in the ground. That's hard. This is a new drug with severe, unrecognised consequence. With other drugs, yes, you can die, sadly. But with GHB, it's just much more likely. Paddy was a drug user. He discovered a new drug which he hadn't taken before. He started on G, and G took his life.